right, so now we get to the juicy part, what you guys want to know in regards to what I consider the bottom amplifiers. Though I don't want to say the worst, but in reality, if I compare to the ones that I've already mentioned, they would be the worst amplifiers I've ever owned. So I want to make sure I say this again. This is my opinion. Please do not get sensitive on me. Don't be nasty on the comments below. This is a one man's point of view, and I'm here telling it in front of Mike and his friend. So you guys are going to get it from me right now. Let's go. First on the list, McIntosh. Yes, you heard it. Bottom of the list. Why? Company that has relied a lot on their name. One of the greatest American brands. There's no question about it. I don't think anybody will ever dispute that about McIntosh, right? Yep. No doubt. They are just an incredible company, holistically speaking. But I am reviewing the actual sound quality of a product and not what their resume is. I don't care about what they did yesterday. Okay? If I'm hiring you, I don't give a damn what you did in 1996. If I need you for a position that you need to fill today, I want to know what you've done over the last 5 years. Where have you been? What have you been doing? Could care less 1996 what you did. That's my view on McIntosh. I feel like their resume is great when you look back in time. As of the last few years, I don't feel that, sonically speaking, they're there. Now, to be fair, I have not heard the new 901s, which Mike and I have spoken about on several occasions. I've heard great things about them. I haven't really had the opportunity to sit down in my room and listen to them critically. They look enormous. They're huge, heavy, beautiful. And for all I know, I may like the amplifier. In addition to that, I want to say the best amplifier I have owned from McIntosh is the 2301, which you love dearly.
2301 was great. Great amplifier.
Right?
Yep. I've owned so much McIntosh, it's not even funny. Yep. I've forgotten all the models. 352s, 452s, 601s.
Yeah, me too.
1.2s, yep. 2301s, 275s, 75s. Oh, the list goes on and on and on. Yeah.
And the 2301, when I had it, that one time with my Neolith, I couldn't get out of the chair.
Very special amplifier. Absolutely.
I just hope that, and rumor has it that the 901 is not the replacement of the 2301.
So there might be one coming.
I don't know.
Okay.
But because it's a hybrid, it's a 601 or 611 with a 2301 on the high frequency and mid range.
Got it.
The 2301 to me, if I'm buying something from McIntosh, that's the amplifier I go to. Is it perfect? No. It doesn't have the control of a solid state design.
It's not super dynamic.
But it is freaking musical and engaging. It's beautiful sounding. It's one of the most delicious amplifiers to listen to.
Yeah.
And to me, it looks beautiful. Quite frankly, I like looking at the tubes and the design. And let's keep it real. When it comes to looks, I think they are timeless designs. I mean, I think they still look pretty. Those gauges are really, really, they do some voodoo effect on us that we love to see them move at night, turn the lights off in the room and see the light. It's a pretty cool lighting show. But this is not about the 4th of July, right? This is about sound quality. And to me, unless something really, really changes, or maybe the company changes hands, I know they just parted ways with Audio Research recently.
Right.
They need to make drastic moves if they want to stay on top, because right now they are at the bottom of my list, and I do not see anything promising in their future that can make me think otherwise. Okay, what do you feel? What's your personal opinion here? How do you feel about Mac?
Well, I think McIntosh has been around a long time, as we said, many, many years. And I got into high-end audio because my father had a McIntosh system with clip horns, and that's what really got me into high-end audio. So I have a soft spot for McIntosh. I think the company, they know their market, and their market is selling the blue meters to a certain demographic that's always wanted the blue meters. And, they do have some interesting technology in the autoformer, which, as we say, the autoformer giveth and the autoformer taketh away. So it does provide a level of stability to the amplifier and protection to the amplifier, but it does create a slight veiled sound that you associate with that autoformer. So if you actually listen to an older McIntosh amp without it, it's a very, like for example the ones that were at Woodstock, which I've had the pleasure, I think it was the 3500 if my memory is correct, is a totally different sounding amplifier. It doesn't even sound like a McIntosh. So the McIntosh we've known through the 90s and the last 30 years, for example, they have this autoformer technology, and it does create a different type of sound, a very veiled sound, I find. But it giveth and it taketh away. So it's they're a good company. I mean, we don't sell McIntosh. I'll be honest with you, the rep here in this area has treated us very poorly.
Oh wow. Okay.
Not a fan. So it's just not a product that we've talked about here internally.
Now, because I got another brand that I'm going to go over in a minute that I felt, and Mike feels the same way, has gone backwards. So anyway, McIntosh, yes, you are definitely part of this bottom tier group. Next brand, Krell. Another great American brand. Everyone knew those Krell amplifiers, the KSA from the 90s and the 80s and the 250s, and everyone knew these monster Krells that were known for slam and dynamics. You had a difficult to drive speaker at that point in time in your life, you went after Krell. Let's keep it real. Krell, what Dan Agostino was doing behind the wheel over at Krell was incredible at that point in time. I really thought that Krell was... I just think that if Krell had gone in the right direction, they could have easily put themselves with the first group.
Yeah, I mean, Krell's back in the day, if you wanted to drive those difficult apogees, you got Krell's. Yeah. That's what you got.
That's what you got. That's Krell. Krell just had the power. There were mules.
They were.
And Dan Agostino leaves for whatever. The story. You can look it up online. He goes does his own thing. The Dan Agostino line, and Krell begins to fall apart. Why do I say that? I have owned the Krell iBias. I have owned the amplifiers. I know the idea behind these amplifiers.
So you've had the newer ones.
I've had the new ones. The idea was to have an amplifier that was a lot more efficient, kind of like the innovation that I've been asking from past labs. Right. They tried to do that with the new Krell iBias, right? They tried to create a product. Now they started using fans too. Now they ran hot, not as hot as the old, big old Krells. Yeah. They were more efficient, and they were just they ran a little cooler. You also can control them through the network, and you can see their error codes, and they can troubleshoot from the internet and all this crap. You can see all these, the temperature of the amplifier on your computer. You can see it all. So, but I felt like sonically speaking, again, don't get me wrong, they're not bad, but I feel like if your potential is to be up here, based on who you are, but you're here, to me, that's unacceptable. To me, that's kind of like just being lazy, right? Now, if Krell wasn't the brand that I know they're capable of being, which is to be here, they would not be here for me. They would be at least in the middle. But I think they kept slipping and slipping more and more and more.
It's just not it's not for me, it's not a product or a brand that I read much about.
Right.
I don't know what they're working on. I haven't really looked into it. I think there was a review on a Krell product, maybe in Stereophile.
The new integrated had a good review.
Yeah, so
had a good review.
So I think hopefully we can get back to doing trade shows, and we can start to see some of the new stuff that's been coming out and get to hear it. That'll be good.
That'll be good. Okay, the next one, I have to say it, and I was just mentioning. Here's a brand that we both agreed was great on the previous version that they had, and not so good with the current line that they have. Bryston. We agreed, Mike and I, that the SST2...
I love the SST2.
Line?
I love that sound, yeah.
To us, was a better component than the SST3. Or
it has a different sound. I think, to be fair, the SST2 was vastly different sonically than the SST3. And if you go towards the warmer, smoother, type of sound, I think the SST2 had that characteristics. The SST3, to my ears, is more transparent, more dynamic, more resolving. So it's flavors again. I liked the SST2. I was a big fan of it. I thought the 28 SST2s, I still think today you can pick a pair up on
For
used market
$6
for
grand, $7 grand.
Oh yeah, and
Crazy money.
they're tremendous sounding amplifiers. The SST3 I think has a different signature. I think with James Tanner now purchasing Bryston, it's going to be very interesting to see what direction he takes the company, because he's been with them. He's a great guy. He's been with them a very long time. So it'll be interesting to see what new products he comes out with and how he voices them, how he likes them to get voiced. So that's going to be exciting for Bryston. But to answer your question, I was maybe biases. I like the SST2 sound, like we talked about the past. The 0.5 appealed more to the tube lover like me.
Yeah.
So, but for other people, they say, oh, it's too warm. I want more transparency. I want more detail. That's why there's different flavors out there.
Yeah. I think that the SST2 is like saying 0.5 pass labs.
Yeah.
Right?
They're cut from the similar cloth, the warmer. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And the perception is, if you notice, nobody really has anything bad to say about the 0.5 pass labs, right? It's remembered as one of the greatest lines of amplification. As a matter of fact, the 0.8 has more haters than the 0.5 series.
Really?
Yes.
No,
that's something that I noticed.
I had the 160.5s at home, and man, I thought those were just one of the best sounding amplifiers ever.
Yeah, incredible amplifiers. The next one that we're gonna go over, no surprise, Parasound. I know there's been a lot of conversation about Parasound and their new Plus One or Plus models, JC1 Plus, JC5s. I had the pleasure of owning the JC1 Plus, and one of the biggest things that I remember one of the most attractive things about the amplifier was the bass control. JC1s handled those woofers extremely well.
The ones or the One Pluses?
The One Pluses, I'm sorry. The One Pluses, yeah. In general, JC1 has got a lot of grip.
Okay.
The amplifier has great control. But the Pluses definitely took it up a notch. There was a lot more control there. Great sounding amplifier. But where it fell apart, in my opinion, guys, the high frequency. The high frequency of the JC1 Plus, to me, was a lot lackluster. Was very lackluster. It lacked the air, the refinement.
Okay.
It almost feels as if it is a diamond in the rough. Like it wasn't fully polished to expose the light properly. Does that make sense? It feels that way. Every time I listen, and mind you, I use different preamplifiers. I even use, I believe, the Ref 6 SE with it to help soften a little bit of the high frequency. But you guys may not necessarily notice it, but I can tell you, having the reference points that I have in my room that I can easily switch, it's easy to detect where the high frequency is just grainier to a certain extent. Great construction. They run hot, really hot, those JC1s.
So did you feel the JC1 Pluses were rolled off on the top, or do you think that they were too bright on the top?
If you drove them somewhat hard, the high frequency, I wouldn't say fall apart, but it felt like they were okay at low volumes. When you cranked it up, I feel like you lost the high frequency beauty that they're capable of at lower volume listening levels. Because remember, you can switch them into Class A, and at low volumes, the high frequency is there. But when you really gave it gas, it felt like the high frequency, it was not as composed.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? That's what I felt.
Yeah. Did you ever own the originals?
I did. I had them as well. I had them twice.
What do you think?
There's definitely improvement with the new one. The new one is certainly a superior amplifier. The new Plus series is a superior amplifier to the former. I would use, in my opinion, the JC1s to drive woofers. If I'm being honest, if I need to buy amp speakers, and I only have a certain amount of money, I would pick up a pair of JC1 monos and strap them on the low end of the speakers. That's what I would do, and I would let something else drive the highs and the mids. Okay. So that's that. Next one. He carried this brand. He doesn't carry it anymore. All right, and I told him behind closed doors several times. Audio research. Before I go there, let me just say this, okay? We're talking about tubes, to be fair, which is a completely different conversation than solid state.
Right.
It's very difficult to compare tubes to solid state. We try to all the time. Right. This is why there's a lot of solid state that's trying to mock tubes, but it's very difficult. audio research. The worst monos I have ever owned were the 160Ms.